Hey everyone, really excited to chat about innovation and disruption and change with someone who's been in the digital trenches for a couple of decades. JJ, how are you?
Very good, and you, and thanks for the invite, even.
Well, thanks for being here. Really intrigued by what you and your team are up to at Raven. Maybe introduce yourself, the team, the mission, and the journey to the audience today.
Absolutely. So my name is JJ De La Torre. I'm the CEO and founder of Raven. Raven is one of the few companies around the world solely specialized on business disruption and acceleration. What means that is like we help like high grow or scale up companies to actually achieve new revenue, achieve new growth using disruption as a methodology, disruption as a tool, and disruption as a way to actually create disruption on their own business.
Well, you make it sound so straightforward. Of course, there's a lot of
It is
complexity
not.
there.
It is not.
And it's a much overused term, perhaps, digital transformation. But to tell you, what's the mix in terms of people and business and tech? How do we get, or how do you see getting transformation right?
Well, maybe as you said, maybe we can start with some definitions. Because usually people mix and confuse between digitalization, transformation, and disruption. So maybe just to clear the air between our listeners, or like what is what in these domains. Digitalization refers when you have a process and basically you use technology to make it more efficient. So imagine, opening a bank account and suddenly instead of actually filling, kind of like a new paper sheet or a PDF, now you're actually completing some of that process or the entire process through some digital component. It can be an online form, it can be an app, it can be anything. That basically what it does, it doesn't change the process, but it makes it more efficient. I can do more with less. Then it comes transformation, whereas if we use the analogy of a transformer, it's like you have a robot that is a car that then gets transformed into a robot, a standing robot. And if you look very careful, you can trace each of the parts of the ending robot to the original car. It's a different component. It's a different body. Have a different functionality, but still you can trace everything that is on the end result to the original form. So it's a transformation. And then you have disruption. Disruption basically means, kind of like you're going to be evolving to something that cannot be traceable to the original form, which means, in other words, is like you're changing, the process. You're questioning the process. You're actually maybe even kind of like removing completely an entire process to end up with something that is completely different, and with most of the time has a different value composition, a different value chain, and a different business model than the original form.
That's a great point there. And maybe talk a little more about Raven. You've been a very successful enterprise. How do you align technology and data and culture to drive growth? What's been your success so far?
Yeah, so I think, like, first of all, like we operate integrating capabilities that usually doesn't exist. So a big problem that the services industry has is like you have people that think and they produce PowerPoint, then you have people that build and they ship products, and then you have people that actually sell product, which actually they deliver advertisement, basically ads. And these three groups doesn't talk much. These three groups doesn't integrate. And effectively, if you think what are the key metrics that each of them are kind of like handling, none of them really relates or connects with the metric that the business is looking. A business is looking for revenue, for growth. The guys that deliver PowerPoint, they give you a plan, but they're not accountable for the execution. And most of the time they said that it was your poor execution what didn't deliver the plan. The people that actually do or build things, they sell you kind of like they sell you kind of like capabilities, they sell you kind of staff augmentation, they sell you people. So effectively they're a factory that will build whatever you're chipping in without actually taking care if what they're building actually is going to have a market or is going to be consumed, but they will chip something. And then the people that are at the end, that are the ones that are selling, supposedly selling, they will focus and concentrate the efforts in having a great advertisement, helping you to win awards like Effie Awards and this sort of award, helping you to actually be on the billboard, be in the Super Bowl and things that actually will make you very proud, but they will not commit to actually generate revenues. So it's a big misalignment in terms of what you are looking as a business owner or as a business manager to what the services industry is delivering. This is where Raven comes in with a complete end-to-end approach that encompasses everything and integrate everything. So what are the capabilities that we have? Everything that you need to actually think something and sell something. From business designer strategies to actually kind of like developers, architects, DevOps people, content creators, content animators, marketeers, growth hackers, etc. So everything that you need from ideation to actually putting something in the market. And this is why, we try to say, we think to build, we build to sell, and therefore we think to sell.
Brilliant. Well, I worked for a company like yours maybe 30 years ago. It was a very interesting time in my career. Cambridge Consultants, it was called. Doesn't really exist in the same fashion anymore. It's part of one of the big 20 consultancies. And despite all the AI hype, whether you believe it's real or practical or a bit early, all of the big consulting companies have been hit very hard in terms of their
Totally.
stock
Yeah.
prices, their projects, their revenue. Many, even the greats, McKinsey is downsizing. What's behind that? What's behind the scenes, do you think, as a services company? Did they just get way ahead of their skis and throwing people at problems?
I think what's happened is like the model is broken, as I just explained. Like
Mhm.
the biggest consulting companies, they thought for years that just because they throw smart people into problems, they would get the answers right. And
Mm.
what has been demonstrated one time after another time is like, smart people without relevant experience and without like market sensitivity might not create the best execution, strategy or the best advice for a company, and this has been proven. The same happened with build side, and the same will happen with the sell side. So again, it's not because you put smart people that you're going to get a smart answer or an answer that is going to move the needle for your company. And AI is one of those examples. Most companies think that because they are just throwing AI, things are going to get cheaper or going to get better, and it's not like that. We're looking at AI from a different perspective. When everyone is talking about, reducing costs and using AI to make things more affordable, we're thinking about how AI can actually change the business model of a company, how you can use AI to build the next generation of revenue for a company. So we're not using AI or looking for AI on an isolated fashion. It's like saying, okay, how much I can reduce if I use AI to do development, to do advertisement, or even to do kind of like a PowerPoint presentation, but rather like the focus is like how AI can change my business plan or my business model.
Oh, well said. And so, as we dive deeper into automation and AI and everything from coding to design to marketing, I mean, what human skills still matter the most, both for individual contributors and leaders?
So I think human skills, which might looks very fancy or kind of like some rhetoric, but effectively what will happen is like, the only thing so far that AI is not going to be able to imitate is, what you and me are doing right now, having a conversation, a human conversation. Probably if we load, your experience and my experience, and we get two kind of like AIs that to talk, probably they will do a byproduct that is going to be quite nice. But this level of interaction, and if we connect that with physical interaction, like going to a physical store, having a coffee, having a chat, this is what is going to be irreplaceable, at least for the short term, midterm. For that midterm and short term, anything that reconnects humans, I think is going to be extremely valuable and is going to be an asset that companies need to look how to create, how to develop, and how to preserve. And that's beyond automation. That's beyond actually cost reduction. That's beyond, kind of like some optimization or some kind of like improvement in the daily tasks that you're doing. That's about reconnecting, humans in our most basic fashion, that is just, getting to know each other, throwing empathy to each other, and trying to solve problems together.
Brilliant. And you wrote a book, Transformation Designed. What was the big idea behind the book? What were you trying to achieve? Give us some of the themes, and also where can we buy it?
Yeah, so first of all, you can buy it at Amazon or any kind of like massive
Okay.
public store. Like so it's out there. We launched it in August, has received amazing reviews. We're third kind of like in kind of like the one of the kind of global books associations that ranks books and newly published book, especially nonfiction books.
Hmm.
So the book is doing pretty well, and the book turns something that we see and we experience on a daily basis, that is design, into something that we can understand and we can use to create transformation. So in our daily life, we employ, we use, and we basically leverage design in every single thing that we do. Absolutely every single thing that we're doing is actually kind of like it has some sort of of design underneath. You talk about this chat that we're using, you talk about your phone, you talk about the spoon that you're using, the glass, anything that we're using has been designed. And what the book does is basically talks about, how design can be done with purpose, and how actually you can leverage design to generate transformation. So in other words, how you can create a transformation plan that can be designed in a way that actually is going to deliver results. And the book is also very handy because it's offer you a guide on how to take basically ideas into a blueprint that you can apply to your business, to your role, to your ideas, to actually generate kind of like a path of transformation that can be designed and therefore can be executed. And last but not least, I cannot draw into the likes of, IKEA, Walmart, Disney, that are very successful companies that have used design to infuse transformation or of their business models as examples of how actually you can apply this blueprint to something that it's real and has been delivered with tangible results.
Brilliant. So I'm going to be heading to the Consumer Electronics Show, the big get together globally in Las Vegas, and everyone's going to be talking to about innovation, but 98% of the products there are probably not very innovative. So there are a lot of
Well,
companies that are
um,
talking innovation, but not really disrupting. What separates companies that like to market and talk from those who actually do?
Well, I think that it comes from something that is very obvious, but I would say 99% of the companies don't do, which actually is, standing in the feet of your customer,
Mm.
understanding your customer for real, and designing for your customers and not from inside out. Uh, it has been proven that companies that focus on design has an ROI that it's exceed 200%.
Mm.
Whereas 8 out of 10 projects that doesn't have a design component means have not put the customer at the center of the problem that they are solving. Therefore, they're coming from some hypothesis from a manager or a bureaucrat or someone that is sitting at the company thinking on what the customer really wants, but without any actual insight. 8 out of 10 of those projects will fail. So it's super demonstrated, and this is not something from now. This is something demonstrated in the 80s when IBM started IBM Design, on the 90s, on the 2000s. It has been super well documented. Is how design, meaning putting at the center of your value proposition an actual problem that comes from a user, and then solving against that problem and against that user will deliver better result than actually just someone that is come up with an idea of something that can be developed and can be shipped. And so this is the main headline. It's something that, again, it's for me very obvious. It's very obvious for the thousands of designers that have been trying to pave their way into large corporations and trying to advise CEOs and CXOs on the importance of design. Again, not understanding design as an aesthetic component, like how we feel things or how we perceive things, but what is the intention that is behind something.
Great point. So we're headed into 2026 in a few days. And then everyone at most companies begins thinking about reorgs and flattening the organization or streamlining or maybe downsizing. I mean, these are all things that companies think about, particularly the beginning of the year. But many of them really don't embrace change in a meaningful way. They're just sort of shuffling the seats and around the boardroom. Any advice for making meaningful change, meaningful transformations in a company that's maybe staid and kind of quiet and maybe adverse to change or transformation?
I think any evolution requires a detachment.
Mm,
And the more successful you have been, the most difficult is to actually, infer, prepare, and develop the next wave of evolution that you're going to have. And that detachment requires sometimes, throwing out of the window, something that has been your business as usual, something that has been a big cash generation or a big, core business of your company to actually embrace something new. I love what Steve Jobs did at Apple. When they have the iPod, and iPod was the star product from Apple, and then suddenly he introduced the iPhone, which effectively in 6 months actually killed the entire category of the iPod. Everyone thought that it was crazy that he was actually throwing things for free. That was no intention and no rationale to do it, but he saw something different, and I think that was a transformation, of the entire core business of Apple into a new category. I think that's an amazing example of detachment that a company can do. And to remind us of this, there is a book that I really like that is called How the Mighty Falls, that tell us the stories about BlackBerry, Kodak, Blockbuster, all these guys that they were, kind of like the main player in their category for years. And effectively, the story tells exactly the same for every single one. None of them was able to actually see the downfall that was coming. And when they were able to actually perceive it, it was already too late. And it was not a matter of changing the trajectory. None of them tried to change it. All of them tried to slow it down, which also show us kind of like a problem. And I think companies need to identify very clear what's happened with their core business, what's happened with their business model. And if you perceive that it's going to start, reducing in terms of their velocity, you need to start making changes.
great advice. So for people listening, what are you up to in the new year? What initiatives, plans, events? What's on your mind at Raven? It's, by the way, for viewers, it's Raven Inc. Inc.
Correct.
But yeah, what are you planning for next quarter?
So for us, is pretty much, eating our own medicine. We need to continue changing. We need to continue evolving. Our business model is always evolving. A few months ago, we start. We're like a year ago, we're only doing services. Then we started with SaaS. Then we started with variable. Now we're doing co-investment with our clients. And next year is going to be a year that we're going to be pushing very hard on co-investment and variables, which means that the ideas and the concepts that we want to take to the market, we want to invest in those things with our clients, and we want to fully commit with them with 100% variable into the outcomes that we're trying to predict. So that's a big change in our business model. I know that other services companies are not doing it. So also it's a way that will need to be somehow, kind of like paving the way to probably what the future of services is going to be, and partnering with the type of clients and customers that really wants to explore that area.
Brilliant. And you have operations in South America, where you are now, in
Yeah.
Europe,
So
in Madrid, in the US.
yeah, our headquarters is in Spain, and we have
Okay.
offices in Berlin, in the US, in Mexico, in Buenos Aires, in Colombia, and in Chile, where I'm right now.
Well, it's about 20 degrees Fahrenheit here in Boston today, so I'm looking forward to a road trip. Maybe I'll see you at one of your warmer locations. Thanks so much, JJ,
Let's hope
for
so.
joining and sharing the vision and the mission.
And thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for listening, watching. Also check out our TV show, Tech Impact TV on Bloomberg and Fox Business. Thanks everyone. Thanks, JJ.